We're going to have everyone out here. Q&A style. All right.
I'm really happy to see shag
I'll
carpet
sit
on the
with
comeback.
It's great decoration. Okay. So we got some questions I wrote down here from different folks. So, I mean, there's some great examples, some positive ones. Do you have examples when, and this is open-ended for any of you guys, just in terms of communication, do you have examples of when you could have done something better or it didn't go quite as planned in terms of communication or style, internally, externally?
Well, I mean, earlier in my career, I was afraid of working with engineers. I was not afraid necessarily, but just I had the ego that I don't need an engineer, I can figure this out myself. And so we had lots of projects that would stall, and then the engineer would come in and go, well, you just have to do this and this. It's like, if we had just brought an engineer in sooner, we could have saved a lot of grief and maybe even saved a few projects. So, I mean, that's really, really key is find ways to engage them sooner, as soon as you can.
And so how do you deal with the perspective? I mean, people are limited in terms of their world view, and so trying to include people, you're limited by their view. And I often tell the story of my 5-year-old son. We were in Toys R Us, and he wanted to get a lightsaber at Toys R Us, of course, as any 5-year-old kid would. And I said, you're not getting one, put it away. We're here for a specific birthday party. And he said, you're not getting one, put it away. But he said, Dad, I really need this lightsaber. I said, why do you need a lightsaber? And he said, so I can kill all the white people. And I said, stormtroopers. They're called stormtroopers, son. Stormtroopers. And so, but if you don't know, you don't know, right? So how do you bring people into a conversation where they don't know what they don't know?
It comes back to something we mentioned, which is inspiring the project team. I actually think that it's a great thing to bring the team together, not just once for a kickoff meeting, but as various points through. We had the flip side of what Paul's talking about is we have no idea why they're asking us to do this, and we can't work out how to get from A to B because it doesn't make any sense, just because that communication wasn't there.
Sure.
But I do think, having worked around the world as well, is you can bring people to a common point, but it needs to start early, as Paul says. And once everybody gets that, gets on board, gets down the rails, wonderful things happen, especially in this industry.
And try not to separate the engineer from the creative. I mean, they're participating too, and their solutions. Your idea is brilliant and beautiful, and will fall apart unless the engineer can put a little structure behind it. And that's.
And any suggestions for next gen people coming up that tend to go to the creative side or the engineering side in terms of they might not be as high in the pecking order as others and be able to dictate the conversation? How do they introduce themselves into conversations to be sure that their voice is heard as well?
Listen first.
Yeah, listen first.
Listen first.
Because you guys did that when you were young and in the industry. Yeah. You're stuck in the hierarchy, guys. Just stick with it. Actually, go out and go work with some 12-year-olds or even 8-year-olds. See, the 5-year-olds are much more brilliant and creative than the rest of us. Their imaginations grow wild. And you will get a chance to do the sort of stuff you want to. It is frustrating, but it's also, if you want frustration in a rewarding business, this is it.
Sure, excellent. We're running right on time and up against the clock. Otherwise, if there's no other questions, I don't think there are. But I'd like to thank Paul and John, certainly for their presentations.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to the next one.
Thank you very much, guys.